Good afternoon. Have you guys had fun today? All right, thanks for coming. My name is Jason Webster. I'm lead commercial agronomist with Precision Planting, and I manage the Precision Technology Institute, our new PTI farm that we're going to talk about here today, and we'll kind of close the winter conference up today and get you guys on the road. But appreciate you guys coming. You know, 1 year ago at winter conference, we announced for the first time, we kind of debuted the idea of the Precision Technology Institute, a new 200-acre farm that we acquired in Pontiac, Illinois. It was just an excellent location for us. Not only was it a decent-sized farm, being 200 acres in size, but it was located right along the Interstate 55 in Pontiac, and they built a brand new hotel for us. They were building a brand new Hampton Inn hotel, and we thought, wow, as we have growers from all over the country, all over the world coming to PTI, we're going to have a place to house them. And so when they were building that hotel, that's when the idea came, wow, that'd be a great spot to have the PTI farm. So 1 year ago today, we announced it. And as I look back, we've got our first crop season under our belt. And it was a remarkable journey, it really was, putting the farm together. And really, we battled some, quite a few crop stresses throughout the growing season. We had a beautiful spring, and then it turned wet for us. We had floods, and then it turned off dry. So we kind of saw every crop stress possible. But we got through it, and we got some really good results. We weren't just one field day during the season, like many of you guys are used to going to. One field day. You go to it, and that's it. It's done for the year. We'll do it again next year. We actually did field days from the end of June. We started internal days the last week of June, and we went all the way to the second week of September having field days. I mean, it was a marathon, but it was a great amount of fun. Growers from all over the country coming to PTI to see the agronomy, the technology, and the equipment. And we had an international flair, too. We had growers from multiple international countries coming to PTI. So it was a lot of fun. We had great conversations out in the field. Here's kind of what the farm looks like. We've got 200 acres in size. We've got some room to run to do some of the agronomy research that we want to do. And it's big enough that we can have some on-farm demonstrations that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. So it was the perfect size farm for PTI. Now, I know we're brand new, and some of you were able to come to the PTI farm this past summer, and we appreciate that. We're very humbled that you were able to take time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the farm. But many of you didn't have the chance because maybe you didn't even know we were there, being our first year. And so I thought maybe today we'd talk about what exactly the PTI farm is. We split the PTI farm into 3 segments. Okay, so when you come to PTI farm, we've got one segment that is just the on-farm research that a lot of growers really enjoyed this year. Side-by-side, replicated trials of us challenging the status quo out in the field. Okay, we just put the harvest results together. Matter of fact, I've got a printout of it right here. Ended up being a 100-page report with almost 70 trials that we were able to white paper publish here this winter. So those went out to our premier dealers on Monday of this week. So if you're interested in seeing some of the information, they now have it available. Now, what kind of trials did we have this year? A lot of them. Crop nutrition, lots of different general agronomy trials. Some agronomy trials that doesn't even involve Precision Planting products. And I like that. When you come to the farm, I want it to be well-rounded and have good agronomy. Okay? But this is kind of a cover shot of the plot results that just were issued on Monday. So, kind of like to, we captured some video this summer of what it looked like on the first segment of the farm with agronomy. As growers came out, I took them out on a 2-hour agronomy tour, and we dove into corn plots, we dove into soybean plots, and we had a conversation. It wasn't a scripted situation. We just talked. You talked about your operation. We talked about our PTI farm, talked about problems, and hopefully solutions for those problems. So here's a little video of what it looked like on our agronomy session at PTI this past summer. Next, we split the farm into what we call core principles. We had a section of the farm that basically was incorrect planter settings. So we simulated what happens when you go to the field and you plant in the spring and you have wrong planter settings. You're doing it incorrectly. And that's when our regional managers really took this. I'm really proud of them because they took this, the bull by the horn with this plot system, and they were out in the field showing growers what happens when we get it wrong, showing them the visible symptoms in the field. What is the agronomic issue, okay, that we're dealing with? What's it look like? And then more importantly, how do we make sure it doesn't happen again, right? So our regional managers were out there every single week working with our customers out in the field. And again, this wasn't a situation where you got on a buggy and you drove out to this plot and just looked at the end of it. It's not what it was about. We're hands-on experience. We're going to get our boots dirty. We're going to get in the plot, and we're going to start digging, and we're going to talk about what's going on in the field. So that way you can go back home and kind of look at what you have on your farm. But this was a tremendous experience for a lot of growers. But that was the second segment. The third segment of the farm that you were able to see at PTI was what we're really proud of, and we consider ourselves unique because of this, is our ride and drive area, what we affectionately call the sandbox. We've got a section of the PTI farm that we did not plant this spring. We left her open, bare dirt. And this is where I wanted you to come to the farm during the summer and plant that area for us. So we brought in the equipment. We brought in the big tractors. We brought in the high-speed planters. We brought in all the technology that I used to plant all the agronomic trials that you saw with me out in the field, and then you got the opportunity to use it yourself in the sandbox. And we took a little bit of a video of some growers participating in the sandbox, and I thought you might like to see it today. Turned out to be really neat is when growers came to the PTI farm, got in that cab of that tractor, guess who's sitting in the cab with the grower? Our product support team. Have you guys ever had a technical issue and called into Precision Planting and said, hey, I've got a question? You guys ever done that before? Probably a lot of you have, right? Who do you call in and talk to? Product support. These guys are the best in the business. They're super good at what they do, and they were in the cab of the tractor with you folks, and so that way they can show you the technology, how to use it, what it does, and it was a tremendous experience. Those guys really were able to answer all of our guys' questions quickly. That way you could experience the technology without knowing how to use it. But what are we doing with PTI? Why do we have this farm in place in Pontiac? Why are we doing the agronomy? It's really about challenging the status quo. You folks do things on your farms today because you think they're the right decision, right? You think it's the best situation for your farm. But my question to you is, how do you know it's the right thing if you're not comparing it to something else? What if you do something else and it turns out to be better than what you're doing? Okay? Challenging the status quo. You see this quote up here on the screen. This has been considered to be the 7 most expensive words in business. We have always done it that way. Have you guys ever heard that before? Have you ever said it before? We hear that a lot from growers. Well, Granddad used to do it that way, and Dad did it that way, and by golly, I'm going to do it that way. And it might be the right way, but unless you're comparing it to something else, we just don't know that it is the right way. If you look up the definition of status quo in the Webster's Dictionary, the family book, if you will, right? What's it going to say? The existing state of affairs, to keep things the way they are. That is the status quo. If we have the same old thinking each and every year, we might end up with the same old results each and every year. And so what we're doing at PTI, why we developed the PTI farm, is to evaluate new ways of efficiency and implementation. And here's the thing I really like about it. We're investigating, trying to find problems in the field. You know, before we can ever come up with a solution, we have to know there's a problem in the field, right? And that's what we're doing on a daily basis, finding the problem and then trying to come up with a solution. But we're always trying to be better at what we do. This year we were involved with a farming family, a 3-generation farming family, not too far from here, Fairbury, Illinois. And I thought, wow, what a unique perspective from a farming operation with 3 generations looking at agriculture today, looking at technology. And they all 3 generations were involved in the PTI farm in one way, shape, or form. And we sat down and talked with them. First, I went with John Hartman. John Hartman is the elder statesman of the family. He's been farming, I think he said 47 years. And I said, as the first generation part of the farm, you know, you've got a certain lens that you look through of the operation and agriculture in general. I said, what kind of value, what's your opinion of the PTI farm? How was it helpful in your lens?
The acceleration of technology can be overwhelming to someone as they grow older. And so that's probably been a benefit to our operation to have the younger generations become a part of that. Crawling in a tractor cab with 8 monitors gets a little overwhelming. And so you graduate out of that seat. At the same time, the experience with the inexperience, there's a value in obviously in communicating what you've learned, and that goes both ways, from young to old and old to young. And so we've tried to make that work.
That was the first generation, okay? Then we went to John's son, Ryan. He's been farming 25 years, represents the 2nd generation. And I said, Ryan, you've been able to come to the PTI farm this summer. What was your thoughts about the research farm?
In our operation, we look through 3 different lenses since we have 3 generations. And PTI gives us that opportunity to go and all of us see what there is for equipment that we may consider on our farm. And it allows us to discuss while we operate the equipment and see what will give us that return on investment that we would like to see and what will actually work agronomically for our farm. The one unique thing with PTI is that you're able to hop in the tractor and operate the planter. I would say that's really a unique experience because I don't know of anybody else that offers that opportunity to farmers.
That was the 2nd generation. Then we went to the 3rd generation. We've got 2 boys, it'll be Ryan's sons, Philip and Caleb. We went to Philip first, said being a young member of the operation, what kind of value did you see when you went to the PTI farm this past summer?
Technology is moving so fast that the PTI farm is a good place to go, that you can get a first-hand look at the products and what they do and decide if that's a fit for your farming operation or not. The PTI farm is valuable to our farming operation because we can go to one field day and we can see the agronomic data, we can hop in the tractor and do the ride and drive, and we can get a hands-on experience with the equipment in the field in one field day.
Finally, we went to Caleb. Caleb, been farming 5 years as part of the operation. Caleb's got an interesting perspective of the PTI farm because he was my intern this past year. And so he got to get a look of the very first field day we had as growers came in to the PTI farm for the first time. He got to see how this was all working, all the work we had done agronomically, and then seeing the reaction of some of the farmers. I said, Caleb, what was your perspective from an intern's point of view?
The opportunity to do an internship at the PTI farm was truly amazing. I think as farmers walked away from the first day at the PTI farm, they were thinking that the PTI farm was much more than they had originally anticipated. They not only got to see the plots in the field, not only solid agronomic info, but they also had the opportunity to ride and drive the equipment and see how the products truly do work.
So just a perspective from a 3-generation farming family and how they're looking at agriculture and looking at their farm in relationship to the PTI farm. So let's talk about some harvest results. Everybody's been asking, oh gosh, when are we going to get these PTI harvest results? Let's talk about some of them here today, but I want to do it in conjunction with what you've learned today from all the awesome agronomic sessions you've attended today, okay? Now, why are we doing some of the research that we're doing? It really evolves around some field variability. We all have field variability in some way, shape, or form. What type of variability is out there? Maybe it's soil type. Maybe it's organic matter challenges on your farm. Low organic matter might mean low water holding capacity. Maybe it's cation exchange capacity, okay? But it's variability across the field, okay? That's what's been given to us in the matter of soil, right? But what about the day-to-day variability? Does moisture change in the field? You sat through agronomic sessions talking about furrow moisture today. Does it change from the time you start planting in the morning till you quit planting later in the day? It might, depending on weather conditions, but that's variability. Do you know that's happening as you're planting? What about clean furrow? Dale Cook talked about that in his session about residue in the furrow, okay? What about closing the furrow? That was a huge session talking about the new closing system, FurrowForce. Okay, are we able to monitor that in the field? Are we doing a very good job on every single acre of the farm? And lastly, what about compaction? We create compaction on every pass we make across the field. And are you sensing? Do you know that compaction is there, and are you able to do anything about it? That's why we're doing a lot of our testing. Sensing technology is what we talked about today, isn't it? Sensing technology, is it new? Row-to-row sensing technology on the planter, we've been doing it for quite some time. We started in 2013 as we introduced DeltaForce, our downforce management system, sensing on the fly how much weight we need to put on that row unit to maintain ground contact and maintain the planting depth that you want for your crop. Sometimes soils are hard and they're tight. We need a lot of downforce to make sure we can maintain that ground contact and get the depth. But what about when soils turn soft and mellow? Do we need lots of weight? No, that's when we need to lift up. And if you look at some of your downforce management maps, we're actually lifting quite a bit of the time rather than putting force down. But nonetheless, we're sensing and we're changing. We're measuring that, reacting, and controlling the amount of weight on the row unit. Here's some data from the PTI farm this past year, looking at downforce. And I'll be very honest with you, we had some beautiful planting conditions, just mellow, just beautiful planting. But there was a difference when we didn't control our downforce. Where we added weight to the row unit, we lost yield, about 5 bushel to the acre. When we removed the weight, we were too light. We started losing ground contact. That was costing us 13 bushel to the acre. That's yield, though. Let's look at economics, because we're in this to make a business, right? Take those yield results times the price of corn. Let's use $3.50 a bushel, and look at the losses that we're seeing from not having the sensing technology, not having the downforce management. That's a $17 loss all the way up to $45 an acre loss. Those just aren't acceptable with today's commodity prices and the challenges that farmers have. We can manage this with sensing technology. We have that, we can customize those settings right there on the 2020, right at our fingertips, and we're getting that real-time information back. We're measuring, we're reacting, we're controlling. What else would you like to sense? I mean, it doesn't matter what planter you own today. It doesn't matter what color it is. You're making a furrow out in the field, aren't you? All of us are making this, and we're putting a seed in that furrow. We're giving that seed a new home. While you're planting, what would you like to sense? What information would you like to know? Today we talked about SmartFirmer. SmartFirmer showing us many different attributes, one of them being organic matter. We talked about that earlier. The ability of a soil to hold water, in my opinion, that's a big one. Showing us overall yield potential. I'm going to show you some images here. On the screen, you'll see on the left, real-time organic matter data from SmartFirmer this past spring. Okay, and the image on the right is the harvest data. This was corn in 2018. Those images look pretty similar, don't they? We brought this information in and we gave it to the guys here at Precision Planting, our stats team. We said, hey, can you run the numbers on this? Let's take a look at really what's going on in this field. Here's the bar chart. Let's talk about this for a minute. If you look at the lower left corner of this screen, you'll see the lowest organic matter of this particular field was 1.8% organic matter. And this was corn in 2018. Look at the yield. You can see it on the graph. We had 100 bushel corn at the lowest organic matter of the field. This field experienced some drought stress. It wasn't lucky enough to get some of the widespread rains that many of you had across the Midwest. We struggled on this. Low organic matter, low water holding capacity. We need some frequent rains throughout the growing season to keep yield high. We didn't get it here, we lost it. But look at how organic matter increased. We went all the way up to a high of 4.4% organic matter, and what did yield do as we started to go higher in organic matter? It went right with it. Look at the yield of the highest OM. It's 200 bushel corn. We had a 100 bushel swing in yield from the lowest organic matter level to the highest. I'm going to back up one. The correlation to this was 94%. 94% of the time, as organic matter went up in the field, yield followed. Now, we know there's differences in organic matter across the country. This is the map of the United States. Okay, now where we stand here in Tremont, Illinois, we're blessed with some pretty high organic matter levels, aren't we? But you know, right before Christmas in December, I had the opportunity to go down to Mississippi. I went down to Mississippi State University to do a speaking engagement. And can you guys find Mississippi on the map up here? What kind of organic matter levels do they have compared to where we're at in central Illinois? Big difference, isn't it? So we know that using a product like SmartFirmer, there may be areas where organic matter is a huge concern, and other areas maybe not. And so we're looking at new ways to use SmartFirmer. And today we'd like to announce a new beta feature announcement for SmartFirmer, where for the spring of 2019, SmartFirmer will now read and report cation exchange capacity. So especially for our growers, maybe in the southern part of the country, maybe where organic matter is traditionally low, very low across the field, maybe they can start looking at things like cation exchange capacity. So we're excited about that as a beta program this coming spring. Some soils are high in CEC, okay? And that means we have more clay and we have more positions to hold cations. On the opposite side, we have soils with low CEC. We've got low clay content and fewer positions to hold those nutrient cations, okay? We're still gonna report this in real time, take it to the 2020, and you'll be able to monitor this as you're planting through the field. The nice thing about this beta program, it's for everybody. This is a feature you can turn on in the 2020, and it's available to everyone with SmartFirmers with a Gen 2 and a Gen 3 console. But you'll be able to turn this on, you'll be able to enable the CEC function, and then set the 2020 up to monitor this right there on your console. What else you guys want to sense? We just talked about organic matter and we talked about CEC. If we can actually predict those different levels in the field, what are you going to do with that information? You know what we did at PTI this year? We used multi-genetic planting. We've been working on this for a number of years. We continued the research at the PTI farm this year, where we had quite a bit of crop stress this year. We went 7 or 8 weeks without a rain in July and August. 7 or 8 weeks. We were dry. We needed a rain. And all along, we're watching our multi-genetic plot on the backside of the farm, finding those low organic matter soils and positioning a corn hybrid that can take some stress. In different areas of the field, we've got high levels of organic matter, some really good black soils that can hold water. That's where we don't want to plant a defensive package. We want to put an offensive package. How did it work this year? Couldn't have worked any better. In our defensive soils, those stress-prone soils, and we placed a defensive hybrid in those areas, when we put the offensive side by side, there was over a 30 bushel difference. Take that times the price of corn, and that's an additional $100 of revenue just by placing the right genetics on the right acre. On the flip side, the good soils, the high organic matter, the high CEC soils, we don't want to plant a defensive product there. I want a more offensive product. When compared to the defense in those zones, we were 19 bushel better. Again, times the price of corn at $3.50, that's over $66 in additional revenue. Knowing spatial management zones, knowing our soils, working with our seedsmen, and placing the right product. What else do you want to sense in that furrow? Maybe it's SmartFirmer looking at soil moisture. We spent a lot of time talking about that today. You know, I don't think it matters what crop you're planting. I think every seed that we are planting needs to imbibe water to get it to germinate and ultimately emerge. And now we finally have a button on the monitor, if you will, that shows us if we're planting into moisture. We did a long time for this. We finally got it. But now we can report in real time to the cab and show us if we're planting into moisture. Some good information to make good decisions now. What are you going to do if the 2020 and SmartFirmer tells you that while you're planting in this area of the field, you're planting into dry dirt? What are you going to do? Yeah, we could stop and we could go deeper. Right now, we've got to get out of the tractor cab and we've got to go back to that planter and grab that T-handle and move that depth, right? Why would we do that? Let's go to the next screen here. We went into some areas of the field where we had low furrow moisture. In this example, it's 10% furrow moisture. Now, do you guys remember sitting through Justin McMenemy's session? What did he say based on our data that we've seen so far? What does that furrow moisture need to be for adequate germination and emergence? What did he say? What percentage? 30. You guys were listening. You guys are great. Here we're in a situation with 10. We went and dug those kernels up. And now you start seeing erratic germination. The thing is with this, if we get late emergers, that can affect yield. How? Well, our data would say for every ear we start to lose at harvest time, that's about 7 bushels in yield. Let's go back to this slide where we were planting in 10% furrow moisture. How many seeds do you see there as late emergers that may not even throw an ear on it? I count 1, 2, 3, 4 potentials that are going to be late. 4 times 7 could ultimately be 28 bushel of yield loss just because we're not planting into moisture. On the flip side, the top part of the screen, the top right, is areas of this field that was 45% furrow moisture. And look at that, even germination, that even emergence. That's what we're shooting for to give us the highest potential ear count. But again, we're evaluating that furrow moisture. We're measuring, we're reacting, we're controlling. And in the future, we're going to be able to do this with Smart Depth. I had the opportunity to use Smart Depth this spring, and I can't tell you how comfortable I felt using it, because I had that button on the monitor, that 20/20 monitor, that told me how deep I was planting corn and how deep every row of the planter was planting. And if I wasn't happy with the setting of depth, I could change it. I've got that button showing me my actual depth. If I don't like it, I can go into the 20/20 monitor and I can change it with the press of a button. If I found dry soils, I could go deeper to try to get into depth, try to get into moisture. By using SmartFirmer now we can read that moisture line and we can change our depth accordingly. Again, measuring, reacting, controlling. Finding that moisture line and adjusting based on those field conditions. We could go in and we can enable automatic control now. And as we look at variability across the field, we can change that planting depth to make sure every seed is off to the best start possible. And the thing I like about this is each and every one of you are probably different in regards to how deep or how shallow you'd like to plant. And so we don't care what the right or wrong answer is. It's all up to you. You can customize this, put your preference in how shallow do you want to plant and how deep do you want to plant. You put that in. Touch the button, enter the number, the depth that you'd like, and then we're off to the races, okay? Let's look at some planting depth data. This is from PTI this past year. Conventional tillage, corn after corn. We found 2 inches was the optimum planting depth. But why? I've done these plots for years. We find out the optimum depth. It's different from year to year, but it's never told us why. Now we're starting to collect furrow moisture, and it's starting to tell us what's going on. If we start getting this wrong, look at the dollar values that we're losing. By not being able to measure, not being able to change, there's some economics here that we're leaving on the table. Let's talk about closing wheels. Change gears here a little bit and talk about closing. We've spent a lot of time today talking about closing that furrow. The struggle is real, isn't it? I mean, you can get out of that planter tractor, you can go back and you can look on top of the ground and you can say, wow, that looks like that closing system's doing a great job. But then you get down on your hands and knees, you get your pocket knife out, you start to dig, and you kind of change your mind, don't you? We're slotting. We're leaving that air pocket. And we realize that in some situations of the field, it is doing a good job closing. But as we get changes in the field, that's where we can't adjust. We can't react. So furrow force, we talked about that today. And this is going to give us the ability to change based on different conditions in the field. We've looked at different closing wheels in the past. I guess as you look at most planters, this is probably the most prevalent system that's traditionally been on planters, a dual rubber system. We've compared that closing system to others. Some folks say, well, those dual rubbers aren't working. I need a little more aggressiveness, and they've added 1 notch wheel. Other folks say, well, with my program at home, my tillage program, and the soils that I have, I think I might need 2 notch wheels. And these wheels will work great. They really will in certain situations. But as soils change, we can't really adjust these. Here's another system that we tested this year. One of these wheels, a single wheel, as we weighed it out in the field, was 19.2 pounds. We're running 2 of these wheels, so you've got a 40-pound tail system. You think that weighs a little differently than those dual rubbers that we had on that I showed you before? It's a big difference. This wheel worked great in certain situations, but again, we didn't have the ability to adjust and change with the variability in soils. What kind of variability are we looking at? Well, different tillage. We're looking at conventional tillage on the farm. Okay, this ought to be a situation where most of the time it's easy for closing wheels to work, or easier, I should say. But what about when we go to no-till, where those same wheels work in that tougher environment? What about vertical till or strip till? We've done a lot of strip till. The strip till we put in this fall has just been excellent. I've been really pleased with this type of tillage, but certain wheels have performed differently in this type of tillage program. Conventional, this year, all of them worked great. Okay, I made it easy for them with the conventional tillage. Me working the soil, it was very easy for the closing wheels to react. But as we started eliminating tillage, it got a little tougher, and we started to see some differences in closing wheels, especially in the no-till. We had the largest differences in no-till with corn in this situation. Okay, we start looking at the yield differences in dollars per acre as well. There's almost a $17 difference from wheel to wheel in different environments. And again, it's just too much of a loss. That's corn. What about soybeans? We're doing the same wheel testing in soybeans, and it was even worse in soybeans. Some of these wheels were over $26 better. Or, if you want to rephrase it, some wheels were $26 worse than others. Just too big of a spread. And what about the tail? We talked about this at PTI all summer long. We're weighing these wheels, and we're looking at this tail, that T handle connected to a spring. You guys know how to set this thing when you go to plant? I mean, I can't even see the thing working while I'm planting because it's on the back side of the planter, but I got 5 notches back here on this particular tail. How do you set it? I think we've been guessing. This year, we put it to the test. We looked at all different notches with those 2 types of wheels, that dual wheel system on, and look at the difference that we saw. Conventional tillage, corn after corn, I never would have dreamt there would have been that big of a difference just from setting that tension or that pressure on the tail. Over a 26 bushel yield difference in those notches. Take that times the price of corn again, $3.50, and it's over a $90 spread. It's amazing on a tail system that we've never known how to set and it changing across the field with variability. We just haven't had the opportunity to do it. We're looking forward to be able to bring FurrowForce into testing now at PTI and comparing, controlling that system based on the different variability levels in the field. Again, using the 2020 to customize it, to control it based on your preferences. Think about this system working in the field. Think about soils changing as you're planting and that closing system lifting and fracturing with that first stage system, okay? Blowing that sidewall compaction out that we created with the openers. And then what do we do on the backside? We're gonna remove the air pocket, but a dual stage system. We'll have this on display at the PTI farm this next summer. Matter of fact, the PTI farm is gonna be the only place in the world where you can come and use FurrowForce and Smart Depth, where you can actually climb in a tractor and plant corn with it this coming summer. The only place in the world. We're excited about that. All right, what about new projects? Okay, is there more that you're gonna see at PTI? You saw some of the new technology. I lose sleep at night thinking about what is the new stuff? What do I want you guys to see? I want you to see something new when you come to the PTI farm every single year. And so this year, one of the new projects is going to involve drainage. You're going to say, wait a minute, that's not a precision planting product. Drainage, that's not it. Well, it's agronomy, and you guys have to deal with this on your farms on a daily basis. We just acquired this farm. We've got 1 season under our belt, and I'm going to tell you we've got some drainage issues on this farm. In June, we had multiple rain events. We had 2 4.5-inch rain events within 10 days of each other, and it killed me. I had water standing out on the farm, and you'll see Interstate 55 on the north side of that screen. Even if I put tile in, do you think I can outlet water through the interstate? Probably not. That's going to take a lot to get that done. Worse yet, on the other side of the farm, the east side of the farm is the city of Pontiac. I'm actually farming around the city of Pontiac. So what am I going to do? Put tile in and outlet the water through the storm sewer system of Pontiac? You think that's going to work? No, it's not going to work. So we started evaluating this. We need an outlet for this, but we're going to have to get something created for our outlet because we've got water running all the way across this farm. We've got some real challenges. I had plots that I lost. I told you I published 68 trials in our book that we released on Monday. I had more of them, but I lost them because of the water damage in some of these plots. It wasn't a very good situation. So I've got to fix these, but how are we going to fix it? When you come to PTI Farm this year, you're going to see a brand new reservoir that we're going to dig. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. We're going to start on this real quick, but we're going to bring high hose in. We're going to bring bulldozers, and we're going to move dirt. And we're going to dig a hole on the farm, 330 feet square, 330 feet wide by 330 feet long. That's 2.5 acres in size, and we're going to cut this thing 25 foot deep. Okay? Once we get the hole dug, we're going to start putting some tile in. Okay? Here's our tiling machine. We're working with ADI Incorporated. Look at this V-plow. We're bringing the V-plow in. I'll probably end up doing this in the spring. Look at the low disturbance of that V-plow. It's really going to help. I really don't want a whole lot of variability with what we've seen with traditional tile plows and big old chunks coming up. With the V-plow, there's minimal disturbance. I'll show you another video here of that V-plow. But we're going to come in. We've got our tile all set up, different spacings we want to look at. But that tile's going to come in, and we're going to outlet it into the reservoir that we're creating. What does this mean? We're going to recycle water. We're actually going to recycle water. We're going to tile the farm, and we're going to put it into a reservoir, and I'm just going to let it sit until July and August. If we turn off hot and dry, I'm going to start pumping water out of that reservoir, and we're going to irrigate our crop. We're going to irrigate our crop, the partial part of the farm, back feeding it through the tile, sub-irrigation through the black plastic tile, 15-foot centers, 3-inch tile, 26 inches deep. We're just going to back feed it. We're going to put gates in. They'll look like this, and we'll control the water table, pumping water out of the pond back in through the tile. We're also going to look at drip irrigation. We had the blessed opportunity to have drip irrigation on the farm this past year, and it was some huge differences. But the thing with the drip irrigation is this past year, I put the drip irrigation in the center of a 30-inch row, and we laid it manually right on the top of the ground. Why in the world did we leave it right on top of the ground? Because most folks would bury it 15 or 16 inches deep, right? I wanted you to see it. I'm a visual type of person, I guess, and I want to be able to go to that drip tape, and I want to be able to touch it, pick it up, and I want you to see the emitters 24 inches apart, and I want you to see it dripping water, seeing how this thing works. This was our Netafim system this past year. We were fortunate enough to have a dripper system at the PTI farm. You can see that tape laying right in the middle of that 30-inch row, and you can see that water disbursement. Okay, growers were, we told them, we encourage you to go out and look at this. Where did we get the water from? We are fortunate enough to farm around Walmart. I don't know how many of you guys have farms right around Walmart, but that white building right there is Walmart. And when we acquired the farm, I thought, hey, wait a minute, they got a retention pond out there. You know that every Walmart across the country has a retention pond, and what they do is they build this pond to take all of the water off their parking lots when it rains. And so I walked into Walmart in Pontiac, Illinois, and I asked for the general manager, and I said, ma'am, you got that retention pond back there. I'd like to pump water out of that retention pond and irrigate my corn. And she looked at me and she says, you want to do what? She wrote something down on a card. She handed it to me and I read it, and it said 1-800-Walmart. She said, call 1-800-Walmart. I don't know what to do with you. Just call 1-800-Walmart. And I thought, this is history. We don't have a chance of getting access to this. So I walk out to the parking lot to my truck, and I dial 1-800-Walmart, and I get a friendly little gal, and I told her what I wanted to do, and she says, I cannot help you with this. I'm going to have to put you in touch with someone else. Someone will call you. And I thought, this is history. I'm never going to get this to happen. 30 days later, I actually get a phone call. My iPhone says Arkansas. I'm like, who in the world's calling me from Arkansas? Sure enough, it's the gentleman that takes care of all these retention ponds for Walmart in the United States. And he says, hey, my notes say that you want to be able to pump water out of this retention pond, out of the Walmart in Pontiac, Illinois. And I said, yes, sir, I do. And he said, there's a gate around that pond, and there's a padlock on the gate. Here's the combination. Knock yourself out. I obviously need to become a better Walmart shopper. And it worked excellent. We pumped water, we got into that gate, we got into that pond, we put pumps, we put fire hoses in there, and we just started pumping water out of this reservoir to irrigate our crop. And it was amazing. The yield, I kept looking at the yield response of our Netafim drip system with that water. Yields up to 272 bushel per acre when we were getting about 209 in our controls. And I kept saying at harvest time, this is what it could have been if I just could have got a little bit of rainfall. We increased revenue over $220 to the acre by being able to irrigate the crop. I put on 9.4 inches of water. That was rain that should have fallen on the farm that didn't. That's 255,000 gallons of water per acre that we were pumping out from that reservoir. I didn't know if we had enough water to get us through the season, but we did. We were fortunate enough to get it. And we made just shy of about $110 an acre after all the inputs that we had, the pumping costs, the fertigation. But again, we've got this going on, and we encourage you guys to come out and see this system in place in 2019. How do you get a reservation to come to the farm? How do you get invited to the PTI farm? All you got to do is call your Precision Planting Premier dealer, tell them you want to come out to the farm, and they will get you to the farm this coming summer. So we look forward to seeing you. All right, as we get ready to get you out of here today to go home, what are some takeaways? We talked a lot about sensing technology, didn't we? Whether it's with SmartFirmer, whether it's SmartDepth, FurrowForce, sensing technology. We also have the added compatibility with other brands, other planter units out in the marketplace. Here's the Case IH 2100 series row unit. We'll have a beta program in 2019 where we'll be able to add SmartFirmer, FurrowJet, and FurrowForce on that 2100 series case unit. Okay, added compatibility. Today's sensing technology is changing the way we use spatial zone maps. We know that's been a problem with folks in the past, is getting spatial zone management maps created. We're trying to make that easier with technology like SmartFirmer. And bottom line is we now have the ability to have vision, where in the past we have not had that vision. Everything's been invisible to us. So let's go ahead and light up the floor. I want to do a little simulation here. Before we go home, I want to leave you with a thought. Here in the exhibit hall, you'll see different lights, different colored lights. Okay, there's 4 different colors on the floor. Kind of look around and see what the different colors are. And I want you to think about you planting one of your fields this coming spring in 2019. You pull that tractor and planter into the field and you're planting back and forth throughout the field. And the different colors that are on the floor today, think about it as different levels of variability on your farm. Okay, what could the variability be? And be thinking about in your mind as you're planting, can you see these different colors in the exhibit hall, seeing that variability in the field? Let's say the variability is SmartFirmer telling you that we have low furrow moisture. Let's just light up the red areas, guys. Where's the red areas in the exhibit hall? Right here on my right, kind of in the center of the room, and on my left. Let's just say as you're planting through those red areas this spring, that's where SmartFirmer is saying you've got 15% furrow moisture. What's the furrow moisture supposed to be? Tell me again. 30%. Yep, you guys are good. So what if you're planting and you got 15? What do you want to do in those red areas? We'd probably want to go deeper. Are you changing it today? When you plant in 2019, will you be able to read that? Will you be able to adjust on the fly? Will you be able to know that you need to be planting deeper in those areas? That's where Smart Depth in the future is going to allow us to have that vision. Let's light up the green areas. Where's the green areas? Oh, you guys right up here in front and way back there in the back. What if these green areas are the areas of my farm where I'm not closing properly? Maybe it's that really tight soil and we're not closing properly. Think about you planting through these green areas. Do you know what's happening? This is the vision that we want to be able to have in the future with FurrowForce, knowing it's happening and then being able to correct that problem. Again, think about that system in place, just in these green areas right here, maybe with those tight soils, being able to lift and fracture that compaction we've made in that furrow, eliminating that sidewall compaction, and then getting rid of the air pocket in the back. But changing our aggressiveness based on the variability. Let's light up the yellow areas. Where's the yellow areas at? Oh, right up here in the middle. Let's say SmartFirmer is saying that's an area of low organic matter. On a lot of my farms at home, this is where we start going uphill and we lose water holding capacity. And I want to do something different with those soils right there. What could it be? Maybe we bring our planter in and we look at different genetics. Maybe I plant more of a defensive product just in that area since I've got low organic matter, or maybe low cation exchange capacity. But we're measuring, we're reacting, and we're controlling. Maximizing production in that area. Let's bring up the yellow. Where do we have that? Okay, this is the last one. Maybe this is where we're looking at sensing and adjusting nutrients. At the PTI farm this past year, we started looking at the response of starter fertilizer in low organic matter soils versus high organic matter soils, and we saw quite a difference in response. Actually, the low organic matter soils gave us a higher response to starter than the high OM soils did. So maybe that's an area of the farm where maybe we put on different rates of starter. But nevertheless, we know that area is there, we're measuring, and we're controlling. I just don't think we have the vision today as we plant. We don't know this variability exists in the field, and I feel like I'm blind. And with the technology that's coming, the sensing technology, we have the ability to have vision. So I'd like to challenge you for 2019 as we go home, thinking about, are you ready to challenge the status quo? If you're ready to challenge the status quo, what kind of changes do you want to make on your farm? What could you do differently to challenge the status quo to make sure you're making the right decisions on the farm? You know, here's something I think about a lot. We've all got equipment on the farm. We've got those tractors, and you know how to maintain them. When they break down, you know how to fix them, don't you? We know our equipment very well. But do you know your soil? And that's what the sensing technology is going to allow us to do. We're going to know our soil just like we do our equipment that we're really good at. So with that, thank you so much for coming to Winter Conference. We're humbled that you've been able to spend the day with us. As you leave, if you're parked out in the north parking lot by the road, we'd like you to go through this north door. And if you're parked in the back, we'd like you to come this direction and exit through this middle door right here. As you leave, we've got a parting gift for each and every one of you to thank you for coming. With that, thank you so much and have a great, successful 2019 planting season.